Hi, Manuel.
Hello, everyone. Well, thank you for the introduction. It's a pleasure to me to be with you today. Um, I really appreciate the invitation, and also I would like to congratulate AfriMine because it's a really nice work that you're doing all around Africa, and I know that you've been working with several other places, not just Africa, to get some speakers and improving this, for example, career in mining conversations, that it's going to encourage the young guys to pursue some careers in mining, and also the ones that are in mining to pursue and develop their careers, and to know exactly what is after you finish your university, because sometimes, most of the times, you don't know exactly what to expect after you finish college. So yes, thank you, and I'm open to all the questions that you may have.
Thank you, Manuel, and thank you for honoring our invitation. We know that you're a very busy man, and we know too that your time is very small, but you've been able to squeeze out time for us to have you here. So thank you very much. So our first question for the day is, would you like to introduce yourself in your own way? We know we've read your bio, but we know that everybody likes to introduce themselves in a different way. So would you kindly like to introduce yourself in a different way from how we read it in the bio?
Okay. I'm a mining engineer. I'm from Peru. I've been working in Peru for like 6 years, 5.5 years. And then I moved to Panama to start working here. Currently, I'm working here. Currently, I am in Panama now. I studied in Peru as well. Currently, that I'm working in Panama is like a different experience, and I experience working with people from all over the world. I mean, perhaps you could expect that to work in Panama is working with Panamanian guys, but it's not the case. Here, I'm working with people from Africa, people from Europe, people from the North America, people from South America. So it's a very nice experience. What else about me? Currently I'm 28 years old. I just got married like 1 year ago. I don't have kids yet. I'm still planning to have them, but not now, perhaps in a couple of years. And I'm a single kid. I'm an only child. My wife is also an only child.
Wow.
So, yeah, yeah, it has its benefits, but it also has its cons. Yeah, that's what I can share with you about me.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that out of the bio introduction about yourself. That sounds very good. You mentioned that you are from Peru and that you started your career and your education in Peru before moving to Panama. So please, where is Panama? Panama is in what continent? Because I know some of us do not know where Panama is located.
Okay, so Panama is located in Central America. Perhaps you've heard about the Caribe. So all the countries that are in the Caribe are in Central America. So perhaps you've heard about Panama because of the Panama Channel. It's a well-known place that joins the Pacific Ocean with the Atlantic Ocean. So that's one of the main things that perhaps is known here in Panama. And also this is one of the biggest mines here in Panama that currently exploit the copper. And I think it's the only mine in Panama. So yeah.
Oh, nice. Thank you very much. So what commodities do they mine at your mine? You said it's the biggest mine in Panama. And
yeah, mainly copper. As a product, it's also extracted gold, and in part of the concentrate, some silver, molybdenum, but mainly copper. Copper is the major driver here.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. So we know that we have some guests who are not having a mining background. So would you mind telling us what is copper used for, and why is copper important, and why do we have to mine copper?
Okay. So copper is essential to our lives, just for starting. All the electronic devices that we have contain copper. So if you have a cell phone, if you have a television, if you have a laptop, if you have a car, I mean, the current cars don't have much copper, but they have copper. But as we progress in technology, the trend goes to the electrical cars, and the electrical cars are the ones that are the environmental friendlies, but they mostly have copper because the copper is the one that is going to storage the energy in order to make them move. So as we progress to a cleaner energies, and as we go from the diesel power, we go to the electrical energy for making, let's say, the carbon footprint lower, and for trying to reduce the impact on our planet. The trend is to produce more copper, because that's the one that's going to help us to reduce the contamination in our planet in the future.
Wow. Thank you very much, and that was quite explanatory. So since you're working in copper now, have you worked with other commodities in the past, or it's only copper you've worked with?
Mainly copper. The two mines that you mentioned before are mainly copper. As I mentioned, when you're in a mine, you're not only extracting one commodity, you also extract several other commodities. Perhaps in the concentrate, you may have like weird elements like selenium, thorium, all these small elements, but they are not accounted because they are like in really small pieces, and these ones are treated and are recovered once they are treated in other countries where they have these um, bigger plants where they can treat these concentrates. But yeah, mainly copper.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that. You also mentioned too that when you are uh, working currently, that you work with diverse set of people. So what kind of people do you work with, and who are these people? How do you relate with them?
Okay. First, when I started working in Peru, the majority of people that I worked with were Peruvian. All of them also, I have experience to work with Chilean guys. My previous manager was Chilean. My previous superintendent was Chilean as well. Um, there were some guys from Argentina, and also since the headquarters of the previous company I worked for is in Australia, I also worked with some Australian guys that came to the mine in order to see business improvement, how we were performing, how the mine planning process were, and also to speak in English helped me to interact with these people. And once I moved here to work here, um, now I'm working with people from Africa. For example, there's guys from Tanzania, from Ghana, from South Africa. There's one guy that's from Finland, also from the US, from Canada, from Argentina, from Colombia, from Venezuela, from Panama. Yeah, so it's really diverse. Although you may think that in Panama, the for working, you may need only Spanish. The thing is that at this stage, where the company is, um, for the meetings and for the coordinations, mainly on the mine planning side, the main language is the English, even though the mother tongue here in Panama is Spanish.
Okay, great. That sounds very interesting. Um, if I'm not mistaken, I counted about 10 different countries that you're working with currently. So that means that technically, if you have a career in mining, that means there's a chance for you in working with cross-cultural team.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as you perhaps seeing in Africa, also When you work there, you may work with people from Africa, from different countries of Africa, but also there are some people that are from other sides, perhaps from South America, from the US. And it's really nice because you know about you, or you learn about other cultures, some other ideas, some other costumes, different food experiences. So it's really nice because you learn a lot from those people.
Okay, thank you very much. So at this point, we'd like to move into your current position in the company. What do you do? How did you start your journey? And what's your current position in the company you're working?
Okay. My current position, as it was read on the bio, is mine production planning engineer. I'm mostly dedicated to the medium-term mine planning here at this company. What I do is I do the forecasts for the monthly to the 3 months, and then the plan for the next pit that has 3 years of sequencing, and also to assure that these plans are communicated and they are known by the short range guys and the operation guys. So these are not just plans, but they are executed on the field. So that's mainly what I do here.
That's very interesting. It sounds very interesting. So so do you work on the mine or do you work in the office?
Both. So I work on site. I'm currently at the mine, but I work on an office in the mine.
Okay, okay. That's good. So how did you start your journey, and did you start your position as a mine planner, or you got promoted to that position?
Okay, I started working with a contractor company in Peru. It was dedicated to drilling and blasting. Secondary drilling and blasting mostly for roads, for quarries at Las Bambas. I worked there for almost 1 month and a half. Then I changed and I started working for a diamond drilling company that also was based on working on the same mine, but to a different contractor. But since I graduated, I always wanted to work to develop my career into the mine planning area. But you know, perhaps at the beginning I did not get a job in mine planning in the mine planning area. I mean, I could not wait until I get one. I mean, I needed to start working because I studied because I wanted to work. So I started working in those areas, even though it was not the areas that I wanted to work on. I mean, it was also a rich experience, and it helped me to understand the operational side on many points, like drilling and blasting and this diamond drill. Because I mean, when you are at the university, you okay, teachers, books, they show you what is diamond drilling, what is it used for, but to see how it was produced, how you get the cores, which machines are used for this purpose, it's quite interesting. And after I worked there for like 5 months, there was this opening on the graduate programs at MMG, and I applied for this program. I took the interviews. It was quite a long process that took almost, I think, 3 months, more or less, 2 or 3 months. And then, okay, they said, okay, you are selected for filling a position as a graduate engineer on the strategic planning area. And then I started working in there. It was mainly developing some projects, learning about costing, budgeting, like long-term mine planning. But as you know, when you're just starting in a company, starting in an area, you always want to know more. So that was part of my desire. And then there was this opportunity to join the short range team to jump from the mine strategic planning to the short range mine planning. So yeah, I did that together with my back-to-back colleague, and we moved to short range planning. Then when the graduate program, the time finished, we were graduates for 1.5 year. There was this position on junior engineer. Um, after we finished that, we started as junior engineers, and then there was an opening for this engineer one, that is the next position for graduate for junior engineer. Then we were promoted to that position, and when the senior in charge of the short range team was promoted to go to working in the main offices in Lima, then the engineer three that was my boss, he was promoted to senior, and then I got promoted also to engineer three. So that was my journey at my previous company, and after starting as a graduate and being engineer three, so that was almost 5 years, I decided to move to a new company, and I'm here as a mine production planning engineer, working mostly on mine planning.
Wow, that's interesting. I was just taking a note of all the positions you've worked in. So if I heard you clearly, you started with a non-mining company, then from there you moved to a position in short-range mine planning, then you moved to from strategic mine planning, you moved to short-range mine planning, and from there you moved to junior engineer. Then from there you moved to engineer one, engineer two, engineer three, and now you're working in mine production planning. That's 7 different positions in the mining industry. So is it safe to say that if you're in the mining industry, the rate of career growth is very high?
Yeah, I just wanted to rectify that. I jumped from engineer one to engineer three. At that time, there was not this engineer two position, so I jumped directly to number three. And yet I took several positions, and as you grew, mostly the responsibilities, I mean, the functions are important every step of the way that you take, because you need to know how to do stuff. I mean, as you progresses, you don't need to be doing the same things during the positions you're taking, but you need to know how things are done, because you need to see, you need to supervise, you need to help the people that are doing the one. Perhaps it's a little bit harder because the positions shrink, they're reduced, because it's like a pyramid. But if you have the attitude, I would say mostly the attitude, yeah, I mean, the sky is the limit, I think.
Okay. Thank you. So what skills, do you mind if I ask you that, what skills are needed in all of these positions that you've taken in the past and the one you hold currently?
When I started, for me at least, it was more important to know about the software, to know the terminology, to know the concepts, interaction between different areas. But as you progress, it's important more responsibility, and it's important to know how your team works, how people behaves around you. So as you progresses, I think that from the technical side, the people side gets more importance as you progress on your career.
Okay, so you just mentioned now that when you are growing, or when you are growing in your positions in the organization, the first and the most important thing is the technical side. But over years, the leadership and the soft skills and the people management is what is important. Is that what you said?
Exactly.
Oh, great. All right, thank you very much for that. I'm sure a number of people listening are those that are about to start their career. So would you mind buttressing those specific skills that, or those technical skills that were needed when you started?
Okay. In my case, because as I mentioned, I did not study in my planning.
Yes.
The most important skill that I would say helped me progress and overcome these positions was the attitude that I
Wow.
wanted to learn. Yeah, perhaps you think that's, I mean, perhaps doesn't make sense, but
Wow.
you perhaps could be someone that, okay, you finish university, but you don't know anything about software, you don't know anything about simulation or whatever they're using. But if you want to learn, I think that's key.
Mm,
I think
mm,
that's the key. I mean, for example, if I were to hire some new guy, some new engineer,
yeah.
I would rather to have someone that is keen to learn instead of having like a genius that does not want to learn anymore.
Mm. Okay, okay, that is surprising. I was expecting you to name some softwares, to name some activities, and to name some phases of mind operation that you need to master. But you simplified it by saying attitude. So attitude is the most important thing to have. Thank you very
Yeah,
much for that.
I'm talking from my experience.
Excellent.
So
Yeah.
okay, I need some technical skills, but I think that most important was that in my case. I know that
Okay.
every case is not the same.
Okay. 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 That's good. Okay. So you mentioned now that in your position you're working more with people. So kindly let us know who are the professionals and non-professionals that you're working with? Are they all technical people or are there some non-technical people? What roles do they fill up and what do they do in those roles?
Okay, yeah, yeah, you work with both. I mean, um, basically, when you're working more on the short range side of mine planning, you are more involved and more interactions, for example, like with operators, machine operators like dozers or shovels or in the geology side with the people that take the samples that are not necessarily technical people or have a degree on the university or college. You're like more interaction with them. But as you progresses on the horizons of the mine planning, every time that you progress, you get like more involved with technical people because okay, you interact with operational people, but the majority of these operational people are also technical people because okay, they went to university and they got some degree and they understand the topics and terminology. But also when you're in my planning, something that is important, okay, perhaps everyone on the room could have like a bachelor degree or being instructed. But as a main planning engineer, you need to know how to communicate the plan, how to make it simple, because perhaps you can be talking about the cut-off grade, the productivity of the shovel. Okay, this is the medium grade, high grade, and this is the bench. This is the next bench. We're going to make a drop cut here. But if you don't make it visual, if you don't know how to explain it well, perhaps these operational guys could not understand you well. And at the end of the day, this plan is not going to be accomplished because you, as a main planner, didn't know how to explain well this plan or idea.
Mm, mm, mm. Okay, that's very good. You just said something very critical now. You said if you do not explain well, there's a chance that the operation is going to be affected. So have you had any experience where, or have you seen experiences where people did not explain well or people did not communicate well and it affected the operations?
Yeah, for example, I can make you like a small case, a simple example that perhaps it happened to me once where I worked. Okay, I assumed that the operational supervisor was going to develop a ramp at 10% from west to east. Okay, but then at the next day, what happened was that he did not build this ramp to 10%. He built it to 8%. Perhaps because I did not communicate, I did not coordinate to leave the stakes on the field. And I mean, it's not like a big impact in there, but this 10% ramp had a purpose because it had to go to certain space. But if you do do you hear me or you lost me?
Yeah, we lost you for a minute.
Okay, so okay, that's what I was telling you about this ramp.
Yes.
So this 10% ramp is supposed to go to a place, I mean, 150 meters. If you do an 8% ramp, it's going to go, I don't know, 180 meters. And this 10% ramp has a purpose because you need to get these 150 meters in order, for example, to start the next ramp. But if you fill it to a lower gradient, then you'll need this extra distance that you fill. You perhaps need to mine it. And this causes a delay in the mining process. So sometimes you can assume that the other person knows what to do, but perhaps it's not like that.
That's good. Thank you very much for that. Just before we continue asking the questions, I would like to say, if you have questions for Manuel, feel free to use the comment box and the chat box of the group and send in your message. We would pass your question across to him, and I'm sure he's going to give us answers to that. All right, so our next question is, what is your advice for people seeking position in the mining industry? Be it technical people, be it non-technical people. If you had to advise them on something, what would it be?
The first advice that I would give the person that are seeking opportunities on mining is that you identify what you want to do. That's the first thing, because mining is a wide range of options. In mining, you could be working as myself in the mine planning area, operations, you could work in dewatering, you could work in dispatch, you can work with database, you can work even with the geologists, you can do some geostatistics, block model estimation, I mean, drill and blast. There's many areas that you can get into the mining industry. My first advice would be that, okay, identify what you like, what is the area that you like. That's the first one. Then after you have this clear, I mean, you have to seek for every opportunity in there, not only on the area that you're looking for, because I know that perhaps at the beginning it's not going to be easy to, okay, if I like mine planning, if I don't get a job in mine planning, I'm not going to work. So that's a little bit extreme. So perhaps if you can find a first job in mine planning, okay, you can start like myself in drilling and blasting. But as you advance on this area that you chose for studying, just don't lose focus on what you want. Because sometimes what happens is, okay, I like mine planning, but you're studying other area, you're starting earning money, and perhaps you're growing, you're developing your career. It's an opportunity perhaps that you didn't know that you were good in this, for example, drilling and blasting, and you start liking this area. That's also a chance. But if your goal is to do mine planning, perhaps you can jump from drill and blasting to, I don't know, safety, then to operations, but do not lose the focus on what you want at the end. So that will be my second advice. And the third one is trying to learn as much as you can, whatever you want.
Those are three very instructive processes and procedures to really get what you want in the mining industry. And this is coming from experience, I can tell. All right, so let me ask you, now that we know what it takes to get a job in the mining industry, knowing what to keep on applying and also not relenting, learn as much as possible. is the income from mining industry very competitive? And do you think it's something we can always be happy about?
I mean, you as a person, as a professional, as humans, we always want more. That's our nature. But I mean, compared to, for example, if I take as example my high school, from the people that I studied with, I think that if I were like, I don't know, in other career, I don't know, perhaps a civil engineer or a industrial engineer, I don't know.
Yeah.
Perhaps I would have the chance to work abroad.
Mm.
I mean, for example, in my case, I'm currently working here. I like it here. I mean, the payment is not bad. It's good. But for example, if I were to work as a civil engineer, I'm not saying that it's not possible. I mean, there's many civil engineers that also are working abroad, but I don't see myself working in an other career and working abroad.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. So there's a question I would like to ask. What is the range of salary we can expect for a starter and for somebody who has grown into your role? Can you give us a range? Probably in dollars?
It's different. I mean, I don't know numbers in Africa, but for example, in Peru, compared to the US, for example, the exchange rate, for example, between sol, that is the Peruvian currency, and the US dollar, now is like 4 times. I mean, you have $1, you can get 4 soles.
Yes.
But for example, you can earn like in the US, beginning like, I don't know, $4,000, and in Peru you can get like 2,000 soles or 3,000 soles.
Yeah.
And if you compare the living cost, I mean, it compensates. But if you just do the comparison between the two salaries, it's going to be a big difference. But that's perhaps because in the US, the living cost is higher. So I can tell you like ranges for like the US because that's the most common one. For example, like a civil engineer can get for like a year between, I don't know, $50,000 to $70,000 per year.
Okay.
Perhaps a mid engineer, a mid senior could get between 70 and 90,000 per year, and a senior engineer can get above 90,000. But I don't know in Africa what's the reality. I really haven't
Yeah.
looked into that.
Yeah, but that's very fine. Now that we know that we can earn as much as 90,000 in a year for a senior role, then I think we can come in and apply for jobs in the US.
Yeah, or you can perhaps pursue a master's because I've had a person that worked here. He was from Ghana, if I recall well. He did a master's degree in the US, and currently he was working here for like 7-8 months.
Wow.
But now he returned to the US and he's working as a quarry mine manager. And I think salary is about $100,000 per year. So
That's
yeah,
good.
yep.
That's good. When we were chatting previously, you did mention that you were working abroad and that there was a plan that you use in mining. It's called fly in, fly out. So would you mind telling us about fly in, fly out and what it entails and the one that you're currently on?
Okay. So normally when you're, for example, if you are from one country, let's say South Africa, and you work in the mine in South Africa, you are working with a rotation roster. For example, it could be you work 4 days and then you go home and rest for 3 days. But when you work abroad, normally what you do is a FIFO, or fly in, fly out, that you work for example, in my case, I work for 6 weeks and I rest for 2 weeks. People that is not from America, for example, people from Africa here, They work 10 weeks and they rest for 3 weeks. But also there is this chance when you are almost 6 or 9 months working here, you can change your status to work to as a residential, and you can apply for for a smaller rotation, like 10 days working, 4 days resting, or 5 days working, 2 days resting. And it depends also on the company. I mean, not all the companies has the same rotation and conditions.
Okay. Thank you very much. That is quite interesting. So, coming with the fact that you have to travel abroad to work, you also have the flexibility of choosing a nice rotational plan that makes your work easier, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, you can also always coordinate. I mean, you can talk to your team if there's something that perhaps you need to do on some special dates.
Yeah.
I think you can talk to them and say, okay, perhaps I can stay a little bit longer, and then I compensate those days by staying a little bit longer at the mine. But yeah, I mean, it's really nice to have a team that you can rely on and you can work with them and they can help you when you need it.
Okay. So we have a question here from Oboro Nanayo, and he's asking. He said, "What are some basic techniques a young mining engineering graduate must achieve to become a mine planner? As well, can you tell us some softwares that are very relevant with mine planning in their day-to-day activities?" So 2 questions in one.
Okay, so in softwares, I mean, there are many softwares in the industry. You have the mine planning software, you have Maptech, Vulkan, you have Desweek, you have MinePlan, you have DataMine. So I think it depends on the company, and also it depends on where you are. For example, in the US, I think one of the most common is the MinePlan, or what it's called the mine site. I think that in Africa, from some conversation I had with some friends here, the most commons are Surpack and DataMine. For example, in Peru, for open pit mine planning, the most common one is MinePlan or MineSite. For underground is DataMine. In Chile, I think the most common is Vulkan or Maptech. Mostly, all of the softwares do the same. They have some things that do better. There are some other things that perhaps they delay a little bit more. But which software to learn, it depends on what are you planning to go. I think that's mainly, or what company do you want to work in. So that's what I would say. And the other one was the day-to-day activities. On the mine planning side, it'll depend on the horizon that you work. For example, if you work in the short range mine planning area, you have to work on a daily basis in coordinations with operations to see that the controls are in place, the plans are followed. For example, you work in medium range planning, you need to coordinate as well, but it's not going to be on a daily basis. Perhaps you need to coordinate weekly, monthly. If you work in a long range mine planning, perhaps you don't have to coordinate that much. You need to present some deliverables, but the coordination is not going to be that continuous. So yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. We have another one from Balaji, and it says, "Is there a lot of vacancies available in the mining industry compared to other industries? From your experience, what do you think the answer is?"
I think that this latest year, there was many vacancies open after the COVID finish. I mean, not finished, but was controlled. The prices of the metals were higher because of this impact, and at least I saw that on LinkedIn and some of the web pages because I have this mining network. There was more vacancies opening. That's what I saw this previous year, and it also depends on on the moment. Perhaps there will be some years where the metal prices are not that good, that perhaps the jobs are not going to be that, the openings are not going to be a lot, but there are some other years like this previous year and this year that the prices are good, so there's more work.
Okay. That, just as a follow-up to that one, somebody also asked, Tatolo, he says, if you want to work abroad, what is the process supposed to be like? How did you begin your process? Was it hectic? Would you mind walking us through the process of how to work abroad?
Okay, so first, as I think most of us I have a profile on LinkedIn, and I continuously update this profile on LinkedIn. And in my case, I mean, I cannot speak for everyone's case. I was contacted through LinkedIn by a recruiter from this company, and then she invited me to apply to this process, to this position. I applied. I sent my resume. After they checked my resume, they organized a meeting with the Mine Technical Services Manager. I went through this interview, and after I went through this interview, they made me fill out some forms, some information, and it took like, I think, 2 or 3 months also. It was not fast. And yeah, after that they said, okay, we like what we're seeing and would like to offer you a position. And both parties were okay with the agreement, and then yes, I started here.
Okay, great. That sounds very, very good. So one thing you said was LinkedIn is very important. So if you have a very updated LinkedIn, there's a chance that you can get contacted by a recruiter. All right. Thank you very much for that. So somebody asks, can petroleum engineers or petroleum engineering students work in the mining industry? If yes, what do they have to do?
I think that everything is possible. For example, I don't know exactly petroleum engineers that work in mining, but for example, in mining industry, there are some people that work in underground, and they work, for example, like 5 years in underground, and they jump to open pit mining. And because I know the process is similar, but how to operate is completely different. So if that's possible, I think that also to go from mining to petroleum and vice versa, I think it's possible as well. I think if you want to do that, what you need to do is you need to have a good attitude and be keen of learning.
Okay, all right, thank you. He said, what, somebody asked, that's Tatolo again, what would you call the best practice for a graduate mining engineering student? Like, what is the one thing that we need to do right? What is the thing that will differentiate you apart from other candidates? I guess that's what the question means. The best practice. We lost you for a second. All right. While we wait for his internet to get okay, thank you for joining this webinar, and I trust that you're learning one or two things. At the end of this interview session, we would call for volunteers. So if you feel you want to assist in helping us reach more people, and also assist in being a part of the organization, volunteering with AfriMine, we would give you the opportunity to do that. So stay tuned and watch out for that section of the interview. So just a minute, I guess his internet is bad. He's going to join in very soon. And also, I want to say a very big thank you to everyone who has worked tirelessly to be a part of, to make sure this event is successful. The volunteers from all across Africa, welcome. Thank you very much. I think we have. All right, so on the screen we can see. Ayomide, please, can you give Manuel the privilege? Audio and video, please.
Hey, Tobi, sorry.
Okay, welcome back, Manuel. Yeah. Yes, you were about to answer the best practice question.
Yep, as I was saying, it depends on the company. Some of the companies send you to one specific area and then you stay there for the whole time that your program is. There are some other companies that these graduate programs, they make you go around different areas. For example, you start in operation, mine planning, maintenance, environmental, and you go through all these areas. So perhaps one of the best practices that you could work on is you are going to see different kind of issues, problems. Perhaps, okay, you are not an expert and you're not going to solve them, but perhaps something that you could do is identify this problem and go to a senior position level or someone that is in charge of this area and ask him what can you do. Sometimes what happens on companies is that people know what the problems are, and people know perhaps some way to solve it. But the thing is, with all the working load and on the day-to-day work, you don't have enough time to solve these issues. So if you're a fresh guy, you may not have experience, but you can start working on it. And this person that may not have a lot of time, but this person can guide you in order to get some kind of solution or work around this issue. So that's, I think, a best practice that you could practice once you start.
Okay, you did mention of the opportunities across several companies. So somebody asked earlier, he said, how do we find these opportunities? Where do we go to? That was Dividend asking. Where can we check out programs like these graduate programs you mentioned? Where can we find them?
The first one is you need to check the company's website. That's for sure, because in Peru, in Africa, like that. If you go to Facebook or some other media, there could be some scams saying that we are looking for graduates, we're looking for engineers, whatever. So the most secure area that you can find these programs are on the official websites or the official Facebook pages or the official LinkedIn pages, and also trying to be part of these networks like this AfriMine, for example. I know that these guys are always sharing information, and it's a way to get some of these graduates program on your radar. And I think that's the way.
Okay, thank you very much. So to the last question of the day, or second to the last. So if you had a choice, would you choose mining all over again?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I didn't know that when I was in high school, I was not sure what to choose. I was between medicine, mining engineer, or an engineering because I was good at math. So when you're at high school, they say, okay, you're good at math, you need to be an engineer. But what engineer? But yes, I wouldn't change it because I like to travel. I discovered that I like to travel. And yeah, this career has taken me many places around the world, because one of them is, for example, I went to the US because of this SME conference, the annual conference. So I had the visa. I met Colorado. I met some other areas in the US. Currently, I'm in Panama, and it also this career gave me the resources to visit some other countries as well. So yeah, I wouldn't change it. I would choose it
Okay.
again.
Okay, that's interesting. So since you wouldn't change it, I'm sure you can see a lot of trends now. So what space in mining or what phase of mining would you rather focus on if you wouldn't mind leaving mining? If you're starting afresh.
Sorry, I lost you. Could you repeat?
Okay. Um, I'm saying now, since you've said you're not going to change mining, so if there was a phase in mining that you would like to work, what is that space? You're starting today and you'd like to choose a space. What space within mining would you work?
Yeah, I mean, in mine planning. That's what I wanted. That's what I'm working on, and that's what I'll stay.
Okay. So anybody who would like to consider a position in mining, I think mine planning might be the best option for you based on Manuel's experience.
Yeah, for me, but I mean, everyone likes different things. So
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for volunteering your time to also share with us what your journey has been like. I'm sure we have learned a lot from your journey, and we would like to keep in contact with you over time and reach out to you in case we need to ask some more questions.